Hello, welcome to Dissident Canada. My name is Tyler, and man, has some things happened that seem to be very self-sabotaging in the land of America. Quite a few things. And in Canada, too. The other day, Carney had a pre-budget speech that did not go over too well. It very much looks like we will likely be going to the polls sooner than most people thought. I would like to reveal my prediction, but in doing so, to prove it, I would have to pull up private messages, which I'm not going to do that because they're private. But holy shit, did I almost get the nail on the head on the first thing. Like I gave a range. I said 6 months to 3 years would probably be going to the polls. There would be a vote of no confidence or a snap election, and that 6 months is damn near close to when Carney really started looking like he was losing control. But anyways, that's not the topic for today. It's the Ukraine and the shenanigans that are going on with that. And the Donald Trump. Because, oh man, is there some bad things going on? Like, Trump is self-sabotaging again. He is getting bad advice and taking it and doing very bad things. Something that's not related to war, well, directly related to war, where Trump has really pissed off a very I would not say they're very vocal, but they are very dedicated to Trump. They are very MAGA, and that would be ranchers. By saying, hey, we're going to buy a whole bunch of Argentinian beef. Now, it's a part of his greater Monroe 2.0 doctrine to have at least one friendly South American, Central American nation while he goes and destroys cartels and pushes China out of the area, which is a good plan. But boy, did he come off really bad. I saw some very good tweets by some ranchers being like, yo, bro, I understand you've got other things out there and you're trying to bring down the cost of living and all that, but like, man, we voted for you and you ain't taking care of us. And ranchers and farmers in general are getting squeezed and you're out here, caring about other people. What about us? Like, boy, is that not good for Trump in the midterms? Talking about Trump not being good in the midterms is everything going on with Ukraine this week so far. First, there was gonna be a really good, or hopefully could have been a really good conference in Budapest that was rumored to be canceled. Then Orban came out and said, no, brah. It's on. Don't worry, I'm still making preparations. And then Trump comes out later in that day and is like, no, I don't think there's anything for me to talk about with Putin. It's not the time. And it's like, okay, that's not a good sign because that was basically may well be your very last off ramp before Putin wins that war. Like, Putin agreed to have a sit down with the President of the United States and talk about Ukraine before he won it. You should probably take those kinds of meetings. Although, while that was going on, I was quite worried how in the heck Putin reaches Budapest safely. There's no safe flight path for him in there, by the way. Like, the safest and most direct route is like, hey, I go in from Belarus to Poland to Hungary. There's a lot of NATO anti-air batteries in that way. I wouldn't want to do that. No chance in hell. But, like, that's bad. All right? Then more rumors about long-range missiles being handed over to the Ukrainians and more talk of the Tomahawks going over to the Ukrainians, which very bad. Obvious reasons there. Like, the Russian people know that Tomahawks were built to be nuclear tipped. and aimed at them from submarines. And now you want to hand them over to the Ukrainians, who have become rabidly anti Russian to the same extent that their history tells them of the way the Nazis were against the Russians. Um, that's a very bad thing to be doing. And then on top of that, you now have the Russian oil sanctions being introduced, so that the secondary oil market for Russian oil is now more expensive, which is driving up oil's futures. I saw earlier today. So yeah, Trump is just doing all the bad things. Now, if this is a sophisticated play to draw Europe into sinking as much as they can into the Ukrainian conflict, while the Americans are just pretending and drag this along, and it's a deal with Putin, so that not only do the Ukrainians become defanged and declawed, but Europe as well, and then Russia is once again relatively secure, and we can, have a rapprochement between the United States and Russia. Well, okay, that's a plan. It's a very dangerous plan because, like, the Russian people are becoming more and more hardline by the day. Like, they are agreeing with the extreme hardline faction in Russia that has been screaming now for almost, is it almost 4 years? Yeah, I guess it's almost 4 years. Hey, just nuke them. Just send it to them. Like, that's what's going on in Russian politics when it comes to this war. Is you have Putin being the moderate, all right? You have the liberal Russians who have actually come around and are now with the hardliners more often than not. And, then you got the hardliners who are like, no, fuck the West, let's just nuke them. That's it, we're done. Like, that's where Russian politics is. Putin's in there being like, maybe not? Like, maybe we don't go that far. We have to defang and declaw the Ukrainians, that's for sure. But, like, I've got a connection with Trump, and, we can try and work something out. He's just got a bunch of dipshits around him, and, maybe we can make a deal. Because, again, my opinion on Russia is that, is it the best nation on earth? No. Is Putin the worst guy in the world? No. There's worse. Much, 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 much worse than Putin. But, like, Russia's got problems. All right? But they have the most amount of nukes in the world. All right? So we can't treat them like you would treat, say, a Caribbean nation that is hostile towards you, where you can just crush them relatively easily. Like, they have nuclear weapons. They've got a lot of them. They've got a lot of people. They've got a lot of military industry where they can easily ramp up production, and, like, we can go full war. All right? The entirety of Russian infrastructure, unlike everywhere else in the world, well, except other, Soviet satellite states, all right? Other than those few countries that were ex-satellite states of Russia, right? Their entire infrastructure is hardened. They were prepared to go to war in the nuclear context. Nowhere on Earth else is. The Chinese don't have hardened bunkers the same way that the Russians do. And, like, not even the Americans are prepared to the same level. Like, the American grid, you can relatively easily take down with just cyber warfare. All right? The Russian grid is built on old Soviet shit. Like, say what you will about the Soviets, they made some very robust things. Yes, you had Chernobyl happen. Obviously, bad thing, but if you look at all the other reactors that came afterwards, they were built better, and like they became idiot proof. Of hey, we're going to operate within specifications and we won't have a problem. Idiot proof. Um, and that kept through. Like, there are a reason why collectors collect, you know, Russian weapons. Say what you will about them, they freaking work. Like, you know, if you go back to like the Mosin, is it a great rifle? No, but it just runs. It, you know, is an SKS a great rifle? No, but the thing runs relatively well. I mean, they're old rifles now for the most part. AKs just are legendarily just run, and like Russian machinery is also kind of that legendary. It may be a pain in the ass, you know, like modern day cars or similar pains of asses, not the exact same, but like it just runs. All right. And you want to push these people, all right, who are like, for the most part, like Russian history is them being the sleeping bear. And then someone pokes them just one too many times, and then Russia just lets loose. They've been a relative sleeping giant for a very long time. I'd rather keep it that way. Now, do I think it's going to go to war? No, but I also don't think, again, pissing off the Russians is a great idea. Geopolitically and for like the health of humanity as a whole, that is a great idea. Like, think about all the times just last century where pissing off the Russians was a good thing and worked out well. I can't think of a few. Did you break the Soviets? Yeah, look how well that went. Yes, communism is absolutely bad. Absolutely. All right? But look at the fallout of the fall of the Soviet Union. That didn't turn out so well. Not so well. We got the current situation with Ukraine because of that. And that's just one problem. All right? You now are pushed, like the Americans in general, and the Europeans, are pushing Russia and China closer and closer together. Now, Russia and China have a relatively friendly history, so it's going to make it easier for them to be pushed together. But there was a chance in which you could very well use the Russians, right, as an ally and apply a lot of pressure to the communist Chinese and potentially break them. I mean, without the massive fallout that you're going to have. Because I think Trump's goal in his second term is to break the ever living hell out of China economically and militarily, even though that's really not a problem. Chinese military is a joke. But you add the Russians into the situation, it becomes much, much harder to break them. You're also pushing the Indians and the Chinese in a not so great alliance. Well, it's going to be tense because there's a lot of problems with issues between China and India. They've had like an armistice type deal going on with the border that they have because they're not happy about it. And in the deal is like, okay, no guns, no artillery, nothing that goes bang. So what they do is they like have these, 3-4 day wars where it's sticks and stones. And it is brutal and people die. It is not the greatest of things. But you're seeing at the political level now, when you get it to the societal level, I don't think it's really going to happen that much. But you're very much polarizing the world. Now, the world was already going multipolar, except economically. Like, the dollar is too important for private enterprise for that to ever really happen in any numbers. All right. Yes, I know the BRICS and blah blah blah. It that's just between central banks and governments, and they account for like less than 10% of the system. So who gives a flying f about them and what the hell they do? So there's that. Like, it's just, but this is just like, I think Trump is trying to do what he did with, Israel and Hamas in the attempt to force a deal, except he's applying the pressure to the wrong people. Like, Putin and the Russians are winning that war. It is abundantly clear at this point. Like, everybody was sold, all right, that fighting the Russians was going to be the equivalent of a Thursday war. Home by Sunday, home by Christmas. Like, that is not has not happened, was never going to happen. Like, the Russians have gutted Ukraine. I mean, really, it's the Ukrainians doing it to themselves because they're not the smartest of peoples, or at least their command structure is definitely not the smartest of peoples when it comes to fighting a war. Like, the war was mostly BS when you were starting to see at the beginning of the war, when a whole bunch of NATO hardware started showing up in Ukraine, and you were seeing it for sale on the interwebs, and it's like, hey, wait, how did American, Humvees and stuff start showing up in the Middle East? Well, it wasn't because the Taliban were selling them off. That stuff's mostly accounted for. Or how did it start showing up in North Africa? Like, that's what was going on. Like, you had arms dealers dealing arms, pretending to be colonels and majors and generals, and instead they were just, they were making bank, and then they fucked off. I believe they fucked off. I don't think they stuck along for very long. They may be very well be dead by now. But like the reality of the war is you have to apply pressure to the Europeans and the Ukrainians, all right? And you can create some sort of system that has security guarantees. But it's not going to be for Ukraine. It's going to be for the Russians, because the Russians won, all right? The Ukrainians don't get to dictate shit. Europe doesn't get to dictate shit. They lost. And yet, here's Trump and the Americans coming in and applying pressure to the victors, who all they have to do is to continue to win on the battlefield. Like, I said, this is on the topic, but a little bit, off to the side. I said NATO was going to freaking lose it and start doing crazy stuff. What happened after that meeting, or the announcement of the Russians and the Americans meeting in Budapest? Oil refineries started going up in flames there are 2 in Hungary, 1 in Romania. Why? Now, could this just be a coincidence? Absolutely. Do I believe that? No fucking way in hell. NATO doing some dirty shit, or most likely some Ukrainian terrorists doing some dirty shit. Like, this is the consequence that's going to be. Look at what happened after operations like Gladio, or oh god, what am I thinking of? It's not Gladio. Is it Paperclip? Yeah, it's Paperclip, where the Americans started stealing Nazis. Now you've got Ukrainian Nazis out there. that have been trained by U.S. Special Forces, nonetheless, by Canadians, nonetheless, who are going to escape from Ukraine because we're going to Operation Paperclip them, and they're going to be deposited all over the West. What do you think those bastards are going to do? It's nothing good. Hell, they'll probably be deposited all over the world as, some form of PMC or illegal arms dealers. You are going to see, whenever this war ends, whenever the Russians win, after that, you will see, the next at least decade, maybe even plus, of Ukrainians all tatted out and decked out in Nazi everything are going to show up all around the world and screw shit up. What happened after Kosovo and that disaster? You didn't have Nazis everywhere, but you had hardliners show up everywhere. Hell, there were arms dealers or colonels and majors that were in the breakup there, and then in the war on terror they showed up everywhere arming America's arming the enemies of America that America helped create, and they were also arming the arms dealers. Like, you'll have that same shit fall out here. This is not gonna end pretty at this point. Again, unless this is a sophisticated plan behind the scenes of we're just going to draw out everything from the Europeans and we're just gonna slowly defang and claw them and just let the Russians be the dominant power in Europe and Eurasia. And this is a secret mission to divide the world. America will stick to, the Americas for the most part, and wherever America's interests are in the world. But you are going to be the security of Europe, Russia. It's going to be your playground. It's fine. It's dandy. This is the deal. And we'll have a rapprochement after this, because we're not actually allies. We're working against, all the crazies in NATO and Europe. That could be the thing. Again, it don't look like it, because this isn't really how you'd want that to play out. Because, again, you're radicalizing the Russian people. Putin has only so much control over the country. And there's only so much he can do with the amount of political capital he has left, because he's lost a lot due to his continued, hey, we can work with the West, which really started with Putin with Merkel, and that burned the ever-living hell out of him. Remember, he had to apply a lot of pressure to get Gazprom to sign on to Nord Stream. Then that got blown up. And Nord Stream basically came to Putin at one point over the last couple of years and said, we told you, you can't trust these people. Look what it's working out with between Trump and Putin right now. Putin was like, hey, I can make a deal with Trump. We went to Alaska. We had a good talk. And now everything that they talked about is just not come to fruition at any shape or form. Now, you may still get a deal, but I don't think you'll get, a rapprochement that we needed of America working with the Russians and, dragging us Canadians along with that. All right, I think that's long since gone. But yeah, this is by far not the worst outcome, but it's a far cry from the best. Anyways, that's the video for today. Maybe Monday I'll talk again about why, freaking out over the Americans hitting 38 trillion in debt is not really a thing. It's complicated. It's good. It's bad. Um, it's like everything I talk about here. It's complex. It is. It truly is. Anyways, hope everybody has a good weekend. And I hope everything calms the hell down. I really do. Or, better yet, I hope the markets just rip forward and I can continue to play out my plans in the markets, and then, I can build my own paradise somewhere, and then I don't have to care. That's where I'm at right now. If I can get to that point, I'll be happier than a pig in some mud and shit. See you Monday.